Welcome back, CMAP 1960 server administration students. My contact information is on the screen, so if you need to get a hold of me for anything, you have questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to do so. Jumping in, we are in week 5 of the semester. This is only an 8-week course, so that means that we are halfway through. And man, you look at that week, we have a lot going on. There are a lot of labs, a lot of PBQs, and there are several of these applied labs. These applied labs are really quite difficult, and because they are so difficult, I wanted to go through at least one of them with you to kind of give you an idea of how you're even supposed to accomplish these applied labs. So I've got one here. So we've got the lab launching now. It's going to take some time to load. So I'm going to cut most of this out for you so you won't have to wait the whole 5 minutes. Okay, so the lab has loaded up. I'm going to go ahead and reconfigure the screen a little bit so that you guys can hopefully see what I am seeing and in the video. The screen for when I connect to computers is going to probably be a little bit small. It might be hard to see, but I'm going to try and explain exactly what I'm doing. The lab starts off with the expected configuration documentation. That's great. This tells us what we should find in the lab. I have created a spreadsheet that has all of the expected configuration items in it. This gives me kind of a list of things that I can check as I am trying to discover the problem and fix it, and allows me to check things off. So if I go to DC10, I find that its static IP address is set properly. I can come in here and I can say good. That one is good. I like the spreadsheet because it allows me to kind of streamline it. The information that I've been given, when we look at the lab, it's kind of big paragraphs. It's hidden, piece of the information's hidden in there. I've just read through it, and I'm going to read through it with you in just a second, and pulled out the information that was useful and that we're going to inspect. So let's take a look at what the expected configuration is. It tells us that there is a local network that contains 2 subnets. There's a server subnet that is on 10.1.16.0, and that is a /24 subnet, and that there's a client network that's on 10.1.24.0 /24, and that is also a /24 subnet. If we take a look at my sheet, I have that information right here. I have the client subnet 10.1.24.0 /24 and the server subnet 10.1.16.0 /24. So I've got that information in there. The next is that the default gateway for each subnet is at .254. That means that we're going to have 10.1.24. .254 is the default gateway for the client's subnet. And I have that information here as well. Client default gateway 10.1.24.254, and the server default gateway is 10.1.16.254. So as we go around and we're looking at machines and we're checking their network configurations, we're going to make sure that it has that default gateway set properly. The default gateway is how a machine is able to talk to things outside of its network. That's how the client computers are going to be able to talk to the server subnet. Is they say, hey, I need to talk to somebody on a different subnet, so they send this information to that gateway, and then it can be routed to where it needs to go. Moving on, it says that the server DC10 has a static IP address of 10.1.16.1. Got that information right there. And while the server MS10 has a static IP address of 10.1.16.2. And I've documented that right there as well. The client PC10 is assigned an address by DHCP. Got that information right there. PC10 has a DHCP IP, and it'll be 10.1.24. something. We don't know what it is yet, but we do know that it will at least be 10.1.24. something, because that is the client subnet. Then it says that SMB10 is allocated an IP address via a reservation on the DHCP server. A DHCP reservation means that when SMB10 requests a DHCP address, it will be given the same one every time. And the DHCP server does that by reserving it based on a MAC address. So when SMB10 sends out their DHCP broadcast, it will include its MAC address in it. The DHCP server, which we talk about next, is DC10. The DHCP server will receive that request, see that MAC address, and say, okay, I've got an address for you. It's this specific one here that's been reserved for you. Unlike PC10, PC10 is just going to ask for an IP address in it. There's no reservation for it, so it will give it any of the available IP addresses. I have documented the SMB10 DHCP reservation information here. It's going to be 10.1.16 something, and we'll find out what that is. Next we have DC10 runs Active Directory, DNS, and DHCP. Those are the services that it is providing on the network. That's really the point of servers, is to provide those services. And the three that DC10 is providing are Active Directory. That's going to be all the information about the users and computers in that domain, and the security relationships that they have with each other. It's what allows users to log into computers and things like that. It also contains information about their permissions. Are they an administrator on that machine? Are they a regular user? What things can they do with those computer resources? So it's going to be doing Active Directory, DNS, that's domain name system. It's going to go ahead and translate those URLs into IP addresses for us so that we don't have to remember the IP address of everything. And DHCP, that's Dynamic Host Control Protocol. It's going to provide IP addresses to computers that want to be able to communicate on the network. It also says that the router performs DHCP forwarding to the client subnet. DHCP, like I mentioned earlier, is a broadcast. That means that it sends it out to everybody on its local network, and it says, hey, I'm here, I want to talk on the network, please give me an IP address. Routers, by default, do not forward broadcasts. If they did, that means that you would get broadcasts from every computer on the internet. That would be a lot of broadcasts. It would bring the internet to its knees. The internet would not function. So by default, routers do not forward broadcasts. They can, however, help, and usually it's referred to as a DHCP helper address. The router will have the IP address of the DHCP server, and it is instructed that when you get a DHCP request, go ahead and forward that directly to the server, and that way the DHCP server gets it, and it can respond and provide IP addresses for those computers that want to be on the network. I have documented both of those pieces of information here. I have the services that DC10 is providing, Active Directory, DNS, and DHCP. And I've also indicated that the router does DHCP forwarding. Coming back to the lab, we have MS10 runs an email service. That email service is going to use SMTP and IMAP. And that email service is for the 515 support domain. 515 support must be the company that I work for. 515 support domain and a web application. And the name of that application is Tickets. And it is at the 515support.com domain. So Tickets, that must be like our ticketing system or something. I need to document that information. So we have it here, MS10 services. It provides email, and that's going to utilize the SMTP and IMAP protocols. It also has a web application, and I have the URL of that web application. I've got a typo there though, so let me fix that real quick. We have 2 forward slashes. There we go. So those are some things that we'll need to check for MS-10. Next we have SMB-10. SMB is a server message block. It's a network file sharing system, and it hosts 2 file shares, SMB-10 Colab and SMB-10 lab files. So I'm going to document that information, SMB-10 shares, and the 2 shares that it has available. It says that the SMB-10 public share is not writable. This is not the issue in this scenario. So evidently there is actually a 3rd file share that's available on SMB-10, but they're just letting us know ahead of time that that's not the problem. Not writing to it is not the problem. So you don't need to fix that. Don't worry about it. That's nice of them to let us know that that is not the problem. Next we have LAMP-10, runs web applications. It has 2 of them, the DVWA and MUTI. Both of those are on the 515support.com domain. So we need to document those things as well. We have that here, LAMP. LAMP is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It's a pretty common grouping of packages that are used to create web applications. And we have both of those web addresses there to access those applications. It says the Resources tab. We should use that to switch between servers. The Resources tab is right up here. You click on it and you can see all of the different machines that we have access to in this lab. If you click on them, it switches the computer that you're connected to. It has us by default starting on PC-10. So that we can use that to switch between the different computers. That's great. And it also tells us that we have 2 different accounts here that we can utilize. Jamie, which is a local administrator, and Sam, who is just a standard domain user account. And I'm going to document that as well. That's good information. It's nice to have multiple accounts to test things from. You may be experiencing a problem. End users are telling you that it's not working. It's whatever they're trying to do, it's just not working. And you get in and you try it and you're like, well, it's working. But you forget that you're an administrator. And it may be some kind of a permissions issue that is keeping you from, keeping them from being able to do it while you still can. So it's nice that we have 2 accounts there that we can test stuff with. There is a note here that says you may not retry grading attempts in this lab. That's just the one time that you come into the lab. It does only let you click this score button once. But you can do this lab more than once. I don't care if you do the labs more than once. I think this is a great opportunity for me to let you know that you can do any of the activities that I've assigned to you more than once. They are learning opportunities. So they are not tests. I'm not testing you when I'm assigning you things. I am assigning them to you because I think they will help you learn and understand the material that we're talking about. You'll get tested when you go sit for the certification exam. That is your test. These are things you're doing to help you learn. So please, if you don't get it right the first time, just go ahead and do the lab again. And then we finally, after all of that, after creating our documentation and getting familiar with how to switch between machines and the accounts that we can use on them, we finally get to the actual lab. And you can see it is not very long and it does not give us very much information. All it says is 1, use troubleshooting procedures and tools to diagnose and remediate the issue. It has expand this content if you need help. We're not going to do that yet. I think we can figure it out without expanding that. And when you are ready, grade this task. Remember, you will not be able to retry. It's pretty scary,
But like I said, we can do this lab more than once. So how do we find that problem? How do we find what is wrong? Well, we take a look at what we think should be right. This list is the things that are right. So we're going to go ahead and go through and check all of these things to make sure that they're right. The first thing on the list, the client subnet, this isn't really something that I think we need to go through every machine and check right away. We're going to notice these things as we go through both of these subnets. As we check the computers for different things, we're also going to check their networking and make sure that they have an appropriate address for what type of machine they are. Make sure that they're on the right subnet. Same with the default gateways. As we're checking their configuration, we're going to make sure that they have the right default gateways. So the first thing we come to is DC10 should have a static IP address of 10.1.16.1. So let's check that. First thing we're going to do is come to DC10 and log into it. It says there's an administrator logged in. We put in the password and log in. It'll take a moment. These computers are set up, and this is a pretty common practice in industry. You can see that it has information right on the desktop. This is created using a script. It's not actually part of the background image. It is dynamically displayed on top of it. It uses a script to grab this information, so it is usually accurate. I like to double check things. So just because it has the right address here, it does say that this DC10 has an IP address of 10.1.16.1. I want to make sure just for myself. You may have noticed that the server manager popped up. I don't need to do anything in here right now, but this is a pretty useful interface. So I'm going to keep it running. I'm just going to minimize it down to the bar. I'm going to click on the window and I'm going to open up a command prompt. I'm going to type CMD and then hit enter once it has it up, and a command prompt will come up. I'm going to type ipconfig /all, and this is going to give me lots of great information about this machine's IP configuration. The first thing we're going to check is the IP4 address, and it is 10.1.16.1. That's exactly what we want it to be. Perfect. The subnet mask, 255.255.255.0. If you remember your subnetting, that is the correct mask for a /24 network. So perfect. We've got the right subnet mask and the right IP address. Default gateway, 10.1.16.254. Perfect. That's exactly what we want it to be. And I can confirm that by looking at my notes. Server default gateway, 10.1.16.254. Perfect. That's what we want to see. Is there anything else we need to get from here? I guess we can see the DNS servers. We've got a lot of kind of interesting information in here. We have two IPv6 basically loopback addresses, then the IP address of the server itself, and then its IPv4 loopback address. That may seem odd at first, but remember that DC10 is a DNS server for this network. So that makes sense. It can use itself to find and look up and translate URLs to IP addresses. That's fine. So that is accurate as well. So come back to my list here, DC10 static IP address. I'm going to say, yep, that is done correctly. And I could put a next, but I'm going to actually come in here and say network config looks good, because it does. It's not just the static IP address, but the network configuration looks good. We can confirm the network configuration by just pinging some things. It should be able to reach all of the other computers that are on both the client and server subnet. So I'm going to type ping and PC10. I'm going to use the domain, the computer's name, because that is going to check multiple things. It's going to check that DNS is working properly and that the computer actually has network connectivity to the other computer. And it does. It actually looks like it's using IPv6 to ping PC10, and that's fine. As long as the traffic is getting there and back, I don't care. Ping PC10 worked. Now let's do MS10. That's working as well. We're going to do SMB10. Looks great. I'm going to scroll down on my list over here. I'm going to ping LAMP10. Awesome. I don't know if it will let me ping the router, but let's just try. Nope, I didn't think it would. That's fine. We can tell that it's working because we are able to get our traffic through. We could maybe try the default gateway 10.1.16.254. And that's great. We got a response from the default gateway. It just doesn't look like it has a DNS record in there for our LAN 10. So great. DC10, the network config looks good, and it's able to communicate with everything on the network. I don't think the network configuration for DC10 is the problem. Next, we have MS10 has a static IP address. We're going to do basically the same thing we just did for DC10, but now we're going to do it for MS10. Come down to MS10, give it the Control-Alt-Delete, and you can see Jamie is already logged in. That's fine. Jamie is an administrator, so we're going to go ahead and use Jamie's account. A little concerned right away. The information is not populated on the desktop. I'm going to minimize the server manager. Oh, there it popped up. Perfect. Sometimes that script may take a minute or two to run, but it did finally pop up the IP information, and that looks correct. Just to double check, 10.1.16.2. Yep, 10.1.16.2. That looks great. Because I like to be thorough, I am going to bring up a command prompt inside my VM and do that ipconfig. Oh, if I could type it, ipconfig all command, just to double check my information. IPv4 10.1.16.2, that is perfect. Subnet mask looks correct. Default gateway is correct. DNS server is correct. It looks great. We could go through and try pinging everything, but honestly, so far I have not seen that. I think that the networking is a problem. It doesn't seem like networking is the problem here. So I'm not going to ping everything. If we get through our list and we haven't found the culprit, I could come back and start pinging things. But I am going to say at this point that the network config looks good on MS10 as well. The next thing we have is PC10. It should be getting an IP address from DHCP, and it should be 10.1.24. something. Because it is in the client subnet, it will be 10.1.24 something. We don't know what it is yet, and honestly it doesn't matter, as long as it gets something. So going to PC10, I'm going to send the Control-Alt-Delete command. Looks like Jamie is already logged in here, and that's fine. We'll use Jamie. Got lots of desktop icons, lots of tools that we might be able to use. This looks like it might be my desktop computer. It's got things like Wireshark and some other programs that could be helpful in troubleshooting. So just from the information on the desktop, we have 10.1.24.101. So that's great. That is what we were expecting, 10.1.24. something. And 101 is definitely a something. You guessed it, I want to be thorough. I'm going to open up a command prompt. I'm going to do that ipconfig/all. And there we go. We've got the correct IP address, correct subnet mask, default gateway is correct. The DHCP server 10.1.16.1. If you remember, DC10 is doing DHCP, and DC10's address is 10.1.16.1. So that's what we should expect. It's also getting DNS from that DC10. The network config on here looks great. I'm just going to try one ping just to make sure, and it's working. Honestly, the network configuration looks solid. I think that it's probably not the network config. So DHCP looks good. So we checked on DC10, or on PC10, the IP config, and we saw that it was getting its address from this DHCP server. There's another way that we can check the DHCP configuration. We can check right here, but we can also check on the server. The server is going to have information about DHCP as well. I came back to DC10, and I'm going to open up Server Manager. Remember I said that it had lots of useful tools. Well, this is an opportunity to use one of them. I'm going to go up to Tools, come down to DHCP, and that's going to bring up a window that will allow us to look at the configuration of DHCP. Here we have our 515 support domain, and it has IPv4 and IPv6 DHCP set up. And then it has two different scopes, 10.1.16 and 10.1.24, one for the clients and one for the servers. If we expand the 1.16, that's the clients. If we expand that, there's some information inside of there that could be useful. We have address pool. These are, is 16 actually the server? I can tell by the IP addresses. I said it wrong. 10.1.16 is actually the servers. Let me go back to my documentation, and yep. So 10.1.16 is the servers. And we can see that it will give out IP addresses of anywhere from 10.1.16.9 to 10.1.16.99. So a big range there. We actually want to be looking at the client one though, because we're working on PC10 right now. So let's expand that one. And then we can look at the items inside the address pool, 10.1.24.101 to 10.1.24.110. It's not a huge range there, but our PC10 does fall within that range. It's actually the first one in the range, that 101. I jumped back onto it real quick there. Yep, that 101. So it is within the address pool. And then if we click on the leases down here, we can see the actual leases that have been given out. A lease is created when the server receives a DHCP request and it gives out address information. And we can see the lease here for PC10. And it is providing that 101. So we have now confirmed DHCP is working for PC10, not only on PC10, but on DC10 where the DHCP service is provided. The next item on our list is SMB10. It is getting a DHCP reservation. This is a server. Let's go back to the lab. Since we're here, we can just come up to our server pool, and then we can look at leases. And there is a lease, SMB10. The address that it was given was 10.1.16.11. If we look in our reservations, we can see that there is a reservation here for 10.1.16.11 for SMB10. So our reservation is matching our lease, right? That's good. We want it to match. If you right click on the reservation and you go to properties, you can see this is where the reservation is created. We have a reservation name, SMB10, and then we have the MAC address. It's really important when you make a reservation to get this MAC address and make sure that you type it in here properly. If that MAC address doesn't match when the DHCP broadcast is sent, it won't get the right IP address. These reservations are a nice way to make sure that a server always has the same IP address without having to statically assign it. So on the DC10 side, the DHCP reservation for SMB10 looks to be set up properly. And it looks like it's operating properly because there is an active lease for it. So let's look at SMB10 and see if it is getting that information properly. What we have here is a Fedora Linux. And what I have noticed is that the Linux does not work with these copy and paste. You can't just click these buttons and have it do stuff for you. You have to type it in like a caveman. I know that's upsetting, but it's not a lot to type. So at the login prompt, I'm going to type the username, which is root. I am root. Then we're going to type in the password. This can be a little bit confusing because it does not show you typing the password, but rest assured it is actually recording your keystrokes, and if you type the password in properly and hit enter, it will log you in. Notice now I have a command prompt. I can start issuing commands to this Linux server to get information. There's one command that I think we should run here to verify if it has the right IP address, and that is IP space ADDR. That's short for address. You could type out address if you want, but I am going to type as few keystrokes as possible. I don't know about you. Hit enter, and it will bring up the IP addresses that this machine has assigned to it. The first information there, indicated by the 1, is information about the loopback. We're not concerned about the loopback. We are concerned about the one that has a 2 in front of it, and that is ETH0. That is Ethernet Interface 0. And you can see on the third line, it says INET 10.1.16.11/24. That's exactly what we want. That is the IP address that is assigned to that interface, and it is the one that we expected. It is the one that is being given out by the DHCP server. So it looks like the configuration for SMB10 is correct as well. So I'm going to come in here and say DHCP looks good. And it looks good not only on the server, but on the DHCP server side as well. The next thing we have here is DC10 services. It has 3 services, AD, DNS, and DHCP. I think I briefly described them when we went over it the first time. Active Directory is users and computers. I've been logging into computers, so it appears as if Active Directory is working properly. DNS is the translation of URLs to IPs. We've been doing that. I pinged DC10, I pinged a bunch of different computers, and it resolved all of those translations from names to IP addresses. And DHCP. We've already confirmed that it's working. We looked at its configuration. We saw that it was giving out leases, and it was doing it properly. So I am going to say that I don't think DC10's services are the issue. So I'm going to say services look fine. None of these services seem to be malfunctioning. Now we have router does DHCP forwarding. I don't think there's a problem with that either. We have client computers, PC10, who is not on the same subnet as DC10, is getting its DHCP broadcasts fulfilled. If the forwarding wasn't working, the broadcast would never reach the DC10, and PC10 would not get an IP address. So I'm going to say that this forwarding is working. All right, now we have MS10. MS10 services. It has email, SMTP, and IMAP, and a web app, which is http tickets.515support.com. So let's investigate those. Email, I would imagine that I have some kind of email app on my desktop computer, and I can check this website by going to it. So I think we should go to my terminal. I am the troubleshooter here. And let's just take a look at some stuff. What do we have on the desktop? We have Firefox, we have Mozilla Thunderbird, and it's got an envelope. In case you aren't familiar, Mozilla Thunderbird is an email application. This email may be hooked up to the MS10. So I'm just going to double click this, open up my email, and see if that is working. So my email came up. I have my Jamie mailbox here. There's a inbox. I don't see anything in it. I don't see anything in my deleted local folders. I'm not seeing anything in there. That's interesting. Maybe I'm just a very organized person and I delete my emails after I've read them. I don't know. In the real world, I don't delete my emails. Unless it's completely irrelevant, I keep it. If it's junk, I'll delete it. But if I may want that information again later in the future, I save it just in case I need to come back to it. So it's kind of concerning that there's nothing in my email. This local application was able to run, but I don't have any email. And maybe that's not a problem. Maybe it is, but it kind of is setting off some alarm bells in my head. So we also have Notepad++, some CPU information programs, a Win, SCP, Secured Copy Paste, PuTTY, Nmap, Wireshark, Heavy Load, LibreOffice, Edge, Angry IP Scanner, Network Miner, and Silent Eye. None of those look like they would be extremely helpful in this case. Potentially Firefox, because we are currently investigating MS10. We opened up email. The email client was working, but I didn't have any email, so that's kind of concerning. And I'm just going to put that in my notes here. No email in inbox, question mark. And I'm going to put a comma on the end because I may want to add more to my notes later on. So Firefox came up, and I'm going to want to check the web app. So that is tickets.515support.com. So I'm just going to try and go to that address. And I'm going to type it in, http:// Oh, and it's filling it in for me. Great. It looks like I've been to this website before. It's in my history, and it's coming up. So I'm just going to click on it instead of typing the rest of it. And now this is a big alarm bell going off in my head. What does it say down here? It looks like you haven't started Firefox in a while. Do you want to clean up for fresh? No, I'm going to close you. There, when I go to the website, it says fatal error, contact system administrator. Well, let's get that guy on the phone. Oh wait, it's me. What am I going to do about this? There is definitely a problem with MS-10. It didn't have any email in my inbox, and when I go to the web app, it says that there's a fatal error. There's definitely something wrong with MS-10. I'm going to update my notes. I'm going to come in here and say web app has fatal error. Okay, so man, MS-10, there's something bad happening there. There's not a lot of things left on the list to check, so I think we should just check these real quick and make sure that they are not the problem, and then we can come back to our web app. There's some other websites. If we look at here, our LAMP server has 2 websites. Let's just check those out and see if they're working. One of them is DVWA, so http://, oop, too many forward slashes, DVWA, was it DVWA? dvwa.515.support.com. Just double checking, and I'm gonna go to that website. Oh man, that popped up fast. This website appears to be working. I don't know what the login is for this guy. Maybe it's Jamie. Jamie and PASSWRD. That didn't work. Maybe try this guy. That didn't work. Well, I don't know what the login is for this guy, but the website is up and it's running. So I'm not thinking that LAMP is the problem. Let's check that last website, which is going to be muti.515support.com. Man, that website's working too. So I don't think LAMP is the problem. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say both web apps working. The last thing we have to check before we dive into fixing MS-10 are the SMB shares, SMB collab and lab files. We can check that from my desktop as well. I'm going to open up a file explorer. I'm going to close that guy so we can see it. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to type in / SMB10. And I'm going to just hit enter right there. Maybe it's not going to let me see the root. So let's, oh, I've got the wax wrong. Fix that. That'll probably make it happier. I spend too much time in the Linux world. SMB10. There we go. Perfect. And we have the 3 file shares that we were talking about earlier. The collab, the lab files, and the public. And it said public is read-only. Don't worry if you can't write to it. It's empty. Let's try and make a new file. Doesn't matter what it is, because we can't make it. So that's good. We verified that the thing they told us wasn't the problem. here we have Colab. I can open that up. I can see stuff in there. There's a memo. Memo just has lorem ipsum in it. There's a netdiag. Double click that. Open it up. It's a LibreOffice document. It's taking a minute to load. Oh, and it's a network diagram. That is a very helpful document. I'm going to close these. Maybe it'll make my drawing bigger. Oh, and it's a network diagram of our 515 support. You can see here's the router. It has its interfaces to the different VLANs. Here's VLAN clients. This one's questioned out, but this is the server VLAN, and then we have out to the cloud. So this is great. We've got a little network diagram of the lab that we're working on. I don't think that this is where our problem is, so I'm going to close it. And lab files, this folder contains nothing, and it does. This one is empty, and it is. Marketing, man, we're doing a lot of snooping. This file share looks like it's working fine. Oh, confidential, should we open it? Should we open this confidential file? No, we should not. As a network administrator or a help desk person, we don't need to go snooping around. We were just checking to see if this network share was working, and it is. So I think we're probably pretty good to stop snooping, even though I really want to see what's in that confidential file, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna close out the File Explorer, and I'm gonna say there's a problem with MS-10. We need to get that fixed. I'm going to update my documentation that the shares are working, and I'm going to change the font to red. Oh, no email in inbox. Web app has fatal error. This is where our problem is. So now we need to figure out how to fix it. How do we fix a problem? It doesn't look like email is working, and the web app is definitely not working. So let's take a look. Where do we go to fix the services that our server is offering? We have to get the services working again. And so let's go back to our MS-10 server. Let's close out of our command prompt. We've got our server manager here. Let's look at the local server. Do we have any errors in our events? We do. What are these errors? These errors might be helpful. Let's take a look at them. It's running kind of slow. It's not giving me more information, which is kind of annoying. This is not being very helpful. There is an SNMP error here, but that's not SMTP. Man, I want to look at these events in more detail. Here's a events viewer. I just opened up the windows. Let's open that up and see if it can give me a better view. There's custom views. Do we have any custom views? Print and document services. Web server. We're having a fatal web error. Maybe there's something in here that could be helpful. Just see information. Let's go to the Windows logs. Application. Oh, there's an error here. Defrag error. That's not what we're looking for. SRM SVC. File server resource manager. I don't think that's what we're looking for. Event viewer is not being super helpful. Let's take a look. Where is another place that we could look to see if our services that are being provided by our server are working? Maybe if we went to Tools and down to Services. Let's look at our services. We need to make sure that all of our services that are supposed to be running are. So let's look at, just kind of go through, look at our services and see if any of them should be running that aren't. What type of services would we be looking for? This is a email server that also is running web application, and the web application has a fatal error. Mail server, that might be the mail server. It looks like it's running though. Oh, I'm about to run out of time. I'm going to extend it by 15 minutes. Mail server looks to be working. That's good. Hyper-V services, IAS. Oh. Man, there's a lot of services on here. DNS client is running. There's lots of services. That mail server one is the one that really gets me. And it says that it's running. You know, there's this MySQL service, and just from my experience, both web applications and mail servers need a database in order to operate. I'm wondering if this database service shouldn't be running. I'm going to go ahead and start it and see if that makes anything happier. So we started that. I'm going to come back to my PC 10. Open up my email. Oh! I started that database service and now I've got emails. Let's take a look. OS ticket failure. Unable to connect to the database. Man, it would have been nice to get emails about this. So, unable to connect to the database. No connection could be made because the target machine actively refused it. Great. So at least we're getting emails now. Let's go back to my inbox. I've got another one. Yep, same thing. Good. At least I'm getting emails now. Let's go back here and let's go to the tickets site. Oh, our tickets site is back up. You can open a ticket, check ticket statuses. Perfect. This website is now working. And the only thing that was wrong was that MS-10's SQL database, MySQL database, wasn't running. That is kind of a very difficult thing to troubleshoot if you do not have system administrator experience. I've worked in IT for over a decade, and I used my knowledge from being in IT roles to troubleshoot this. I think it's kind of unfair that they would expect you to know that mail servers and web servers usually need a database. But you now know because I'm telling you. So let's go back to our instructions. Let's say I use troubleshooting procedures. Let's expand this to see what the help would have been. It says to use the resources tab to check virtual switch connections. I didn't do that, but that is a good thing to do. Each of our machines tells you what Ethernet, so what VLAN it's connected to. We want to make sure all the machines are on the right one. DC10 is a server, so that makes sense. PC10 is a client, makes sense. MS10 is a server, great. SMB10 is a server, excellent. And LAMP10, it does not have a network device on. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but it's a server as well. And I would imagine that its Ethernet is connected to a server, the server VLAN. So it says to look at the resources. That is a helpful thing to do, but it didn't help us identify our solution. Use ipconfig on Windows and IPA. Oh man, I said ADDR, and I said that was short for address. You can go even shorter. You can just do IPA, A for address, to check adapter configurations. We did that. We checked all the network configurations on all the machines. Use the Services, Event Viewer, and Windows Firewall with Advanced Security Consoles and the netstat command or ZenMap to troubleshoot Windows service issues. We use Services and Event Viewer. Event Viewer, we probably could have found more information if I had looked through it a bit longer. And Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. I'm not sure that Windows Firewall with Advanced Security would have helped. Netstat might have helped. When we tried to connect up, we might have seen the error that it was refused. Use the system control status, journal control, firewall command, and SS commands to troubleshoot SMB10 for service issues. It wasn't having any service issues, so we didn't need to do that. Use system control status, journal control, UFW, and SS commands to troubleshoot LAMP10. It wasn't having any service issues either. But there are 2 more troubleshooting labs, and though they may have trouble with those services in the future, and I'm guessing that it has this same help for the future labs as well. It says, when you're ready, grade this task. Remember, you will not be able to retry. Oh man, are we ready? I think we fixed it. Let's try it. We turned on that MySQL database. Let's see if we're right. Great. Yep, we successfully fixed it. We turned on that service. Now it says verify that the problem will not occur if the server is rebooted. Okay. Well, let's come back to the server. We have MySQL. The startup type is set to manual. So every time this server is rebooted, we have to manually start MySQL in order for the mail and that web app to function properly. That's not good. That is probably what happened. There was a power outage or something, or even we did an update to this server. The Windows update happened, and it had to reboot. And when it came back up, MySQL wasn't running. That's a problem. We need to change this configuration from manual. We're going to set it to automatic. So when the server reboots, this service will automatically start. I'm going to hit apply and then say OK. I think that should keep it from happening in the future. So not only did we fix the problem, but we took an extra step to make sure that it wouldn't happen again. And now I'm going to select the score button to validate this task. Let's see if we did the proper things to keep it from happening again if it was rebooted. I'm going to score it, cross our fingers. Yay, we did it. So now we can go to grade the lab and submit. Are you sure you want to submit for grading? Yes, I do. Good job. 2 out of 2. If you followed along with me, you now have 100% on this applied lab. You have 2 more to do for the week. I'd like you to give a try to those other ones as well. If you do have any problems, please, information's right there. Get a hold of me. I am here, and I'm here for you. my biggest priority is your success in this class and in your career here at LCCC. So if you have questions or concerns or you're struggling, get a hold of me, and I will do everything I can to help. I may do another one of these videos for one of the other troubleshooting ones, but I do want you to try to do it on your own first. So thanks for sticking with me. I know that this was a long video, but hopefully it helped you learn and to understand these troubleshooting labs a little bit better. Thanks.